Here's my audience. All right, thanks. Hello, my name is Spencer Patton, and this is my presentation. So I want you to imagine sitting there, as you probably are, with your phone in your pocket, and your phone just starts getting really hot, so hot that it burns a hole in your pants, and it also gives you second-degree burns on your leg. Sounds like an outrageous situation, but this is something that actually occurred in 2016. You see, in 2016, the lithium-ion batteries in Samsung's flagship smartphones, the Samsung Galaxy Note 7, began to fail and explode in the pockets of consumers. The Samsung Galaxy lineup is actually the most sold lineup of smartphones globally, and it's second to Apple in US sales. So given this, it's easy to see why this was a huge crisis scenario for Samsung. In an interview with CBS this morning, Tim Baxter, CEO of Samsung North America, actually labeled this crisis the most difficult 120 days of his career. Generated by the failure and explosions of the Note 7 batteries, Samsung's publics were rightly in an uproar. Samsung, over a 120-day period, responded strategically to this catastrophe in an effort to repair their damaged image. The goal of this presentation is to better understand William Benoit's image repair theory through examining Samsung's response to this 2016 crisis. First, I will define image repair theory in the relative terms to today's dialogue. Then I will outline the events of the crisis and tie these response patterns to image repair theory. Finally, I will offer a few useful comments on what can be taken away from the examination of this crisis and how it may be applied to the future. Before beginning to examine the crisis, I'll start by defining a few key terms that will be important in understanding before moving on in this discussion. William Benoit begins to outline 5 main elements of image repair theory in the Encyclopedia of Public Relations by saying the first 2, denial and evasion of responsibility, concern blame. The third one, reducing offensiveness, concerns unpleasantness. The fourth, corrective action, can address offensiveness by repairing damage or blame, by taking action to prevent the offensiveness of an act in the future. And the final option, mortification, accepts responsibility for the offensiveness of an act, but asks forgiveness or apologizes. Samsung, in their response to this crisis, exhibited many of these strategies, making this theory a perfect foundation for the groundwork of this analysis. For my talk, I will be including a few definitions from the subset of the 14 greater terms within this theory. These include compensation, mortification, corrective action, and bolstering. Compensation can be simply defined as reimbursing victims for harm or damages caused. Mortification will be understood to be the act of apology. Corrective action is the public announcement of a plan to solve or prevent the problem in the future. And then lastly, bolstering is defined by an organization's action of stressing good traits or what it may have done correctly in the past. So now that I've set up the groundwork for my analysis, we may now begin to look at the events that unfolded during the 2016 crisis. So on August 2nd, Samsung unveiled its curved display, stylus-equipped flagship smartphone, the Samsung Galaxy Note 7. Among the fanfare of the newly announced smartphone, Samsung was notified that its creation had begun to burst into flames. The first reported case occurred August 24th, 2016. These events initiated a crisis that could be broken into 2 major parts. The first we'll call the first recall, and then the second recall. So on September 2nd, Samsung announced the first global recall of the Samsung Galaxy Note 7 devices. This was a voluntary recall that had never been done before for digital devices, but they realized that it was not an isolated incident within one phone and one person using the wrong charger, but it was actually a problem in the batteries that was occurring across many of the devices that they had distributed that year. So distributors of these devices, including AT&T, soon began to exchange the products or offer a refund for the products if people wanted to come back in and replace them. 13 days later, the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission announced an official recall of the device, deeming it unsafe for use. With a swift turnaround, Samsung rebooted sales on October 1st, utilizing a different battery supplier. So although the first device had failed, they turned around, used a different battery supplier, and re-released the device on October 1st. So not long after this re-release, though, the phones with the fixed batteries started exploding in people's pockets once again. One Note 7 user left his phone in his Jeep only to find out that his Jeep had actually burst into flames when he went back out to it. 3 days after the first report of the replacement phones failures, AT&T and T-Mobile completely ceased sales and replacement of the Note 7. While the batteries had been produced by two different manufacturers, the problems were actually two separate issues related to the battery that both caused the same result. In response to this situation, Samsung created new testing facilities and a new 8-point battery test to ensure the safety of future batteries and the safety of its consumers. Samsung responded to this crisis in 4 primary ways: compensation, mortification, corrective action, and bolstering, aligning directly with Benoit's image repair theory. During the span of the first recall, Samsung responded primarily with mortification. Once Samsung had realized its problem, they sent out an apology video from their CEO, Tim Baxter, to combat the situation. Here's the video.
My name is Tim Baxter, President and Chief Operating Officer at Samsung Electronics America. At Samsung, our highest priority is our customers, their aspirations, their needs, their safety. And with battery cell defects in some of our Note 7 phones, we did not meet the standard of excellence that you expect and deserve. For that, we apologize.
In this instance, we can see that Tim Baxter foremost apologized to his various consumers and publics, exercising mortification. However, he carefully articulates his statement in a way that also bolsters the company, reminding his audience that Samsung is known for producing excellence. Followed by this formal apology, Samsung utilizes social media to initiate reducing offensiveness of the event. This took place in the form of corrective action. Initially, they ensured that the research would solve the problem and that they would actually fix their manufacturing process and have it re-delivered for a September 28th release date, which, as I said earlier, ended up being October 1st. But nevertheless, they quickly moved to resolve the issue for all of their users. Ironically, even though they had completely recalled all of the devices, the Consumer Product Safety Commission estimated that only about 10,200 batteries were affected by the issue. Samsung, in an effort to assure customers that the new replacement phones were safe, made sure to include a green battery symbol at the top of the phone. So through this, Samsung not only exercised corrective action, but they also began the process of compensating consumers for financial losses and physical damage. Of all of the Samsung clients that came in to replace or get a refund for their products, 90% of them actually chose to get the replacement phone. So whenever reports came out that the replacement phones were beginning to burn down, this created a massive problem for Samsung. In response to this situation, Samsung chose to employ tactics of mortification and corrective action. In William Benoit's words, effective image repair suggests that those who were at fault should admit it immediately and take appropriate corrective action. Samsung's actions fell in line with this model directly during this period of the second recall. Samsung ensured that the problem would not occur in future batteries due to the new precautions that they had set up. And Samsung also boasted that corrective actions were being taken. Along with building a new in-house research facility where they would research the problem, Samsung also hired out over 700 researchers in an attempt to relocate the issues in 200,000 devices and in 30,000 batteries. So we can see here that Samsung truly did try to go above and beyond to ensure the safety for their consumers and ensure that they felt safe as well. As a result of this process, Samsung developed a new 8-point battery check, which they hoped would be the standard moving forward. While the second recall did end in the cancellation of sale and production of Samsung Galaxy Note 7 devices, Samsung still continued its efforts to repair its image. Seen in the post-crisis phase are many efforts that Samsung uses in order to bolster their image. Nearing the launch of their next device, the Samsung Galaxy S8, Samsung stressed that battery safety was taken care of. And they used public comments to do this. In an interview with CBS, Tim Baxter bolstered Samsung image and their ability to pull together as a company and ensure consumer safety. A 33-year-long employee of Samsung, DJ Ko, also bolstered the image of Samsung, saying, "If we contribute this as a global standard, then I strongly believe that will definitely increase the lithium-ion battery safety." So he says this implying that Samsung had made the best out of the issue. Not only had they gone to seek safety for their consumers, but they also put this information out so that other producers could ensure safety for their products, given the research that Samsung had provided. Despite obvious design flaws that undoubtedly hurt consumers financially, in some cases physically, Samsung effectively regained the trust of their consumers after this hard-fought PR battle. According to Interbrand, a global brand consultancy, Samsung's brand value also increased 9% in 2017 following the 2016 crisis. This was due in most part to the image repair strategies that Samsung employed, used in conjunction with equally successful ad campaigns, such as their Do What You Can't campaign. Through this, Samsung was able to create a centralized message of innovation and trustworthiness. Ultimately, Samsung's message appealed to its consumers and its stakeholders and brought them from a seemingly unreliable company to a trustworthy brand that was able to once again compete in the global smartphone market. The crisis of the Samsung Galaxy Note 7 battery failures serves as a reliable support to the validity and importance of Benoit's image restoration theory in dynamic real-world use. It also suggests a few ideas that may be useful in responding to similar situations in the future. First, when facing crisis, provide compensation to parties that may have been wronged, even though it may be costly. Second, transparency is valued by consumers. This can be achieved through the strategies of mortification and corrective action. Bolstering can be an effective approach in reassuring audiences that extensive corrective action has not only been promised, but has also been achieved. Next, customer opinions have become increasingly valuable due to the current state of mass communication. Updating consumers on the progress of corrective actions throughout the crisis can build trust. Lastly, Samsung's ability to quickly articulate its position not only allowed them to control the narrative of the crisis, but it also minimalized the potential of damaging or false information from reaching the ears of its audiences. Overall, Samsung did not what was necessary for survival, but they did what was necessary to compete in the ever-growing global smartphone market. They recovered and continued in growing, reclaiming their place as the #1 smartphone sales company in the world. Thank you.